Started here. I need to adjust the volume on this just a tad. If we can get everybody to come on in. Come and have a seat. I think it's number 3, John. Hello, that better? Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. We're right on time at 6:15, so we're supposed to start at 6. But I do appreciate everybody coming out. It is early for a lot of people, and again, I do appreciate everybody's support. We're going to get started with a prayer and then a pledge, and Jenna Christiansen has offered to give the opening prayer. Christiansen, you were right. Okay. I did.
You got it.
I did terrible. Christian.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity to be able to gather today to listen to Priscilla and to enjoy the company of like-minded people. We ask a blessing on our area and our state and our nation, that we'll be able to, throughout the campaigning season, that we'll be able to do our best to find the best candidates for our country, so that we may repair some of the damage that has been done. Please bless those around the world, that we will be able to have charity in our hearts for the people of Ukraine, that we'll be able to, those that are fleeing their homes, will be able to find comfort and rest in the arms of those that they are fleeing towards. We ask that thou will be with our leaders that are in leadership positions now, that they will be able to have their hearts open to guidance in the right direction that we need to be going. We love thee, and we are mindful of how blessed we are in this area, and ask us to have gratitude in our hearts for that. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Can everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Just a couple of quick announcements. First off, and I didn't even have this written down on my agenda, but I stand up right. I've had a couple of ladies come up to me a little while ago and say, they really would like to come to these things, but they have kids and it's really hard for them to come. And either that we start these things at 8 o'clock at night, which is a little late for me, or we do something during the day. And so actually they had quite a good idea that they wanted to do, and they want to have a luncheon, or actually I guess it's called an afternoon tea. And so they decided to come and work with Stand Up for Idaho, and they're calling themselves the Ladies of Stand Up for Idaho. And they're going to start having a monthly afternoon tea at noon, and I think it's probably going to be the last Thursday of every month, but it'll be at noon and it'll be here. And our first one is actually tomorrow, so the inaugural event and the drive run is going to happen tomorrow. So people are invited to come. If you would like to come, if you could actually tell Cindy so that we can get a little bit of a head count, that would be great. But I think I'm sort of excited about that. This effort, they're going to have speakers, arranged for speakers and stuff to come and talk at that. And so it'll give the people that have kids in school and everything, and that have to deal with kids at night and everything, give them an opportunity to come in and learn some things. So, Keith, did you have a question?
Is that here tomorrow at noon?
It's here tomorrow at noon is the first one. And actually Brian Smith, and he's candidate for Congress, U.S. Congress, has agreed to come and be their first speaker. So we're just really hurrying and putting this together, but I think it'll be a great thing. Also, next week, next Wednesday we are having a bit of a special guest, Will Kiesel. He's actually been on the Ukrainian-Poland border and seen what's going on over there. And he's been there for a little while, and he's been back for a few weeks, but he's going to come and talk to us and tell us about what he's seen and what he's learned. I think it would be beneficial for us all to come and listen to that and bring as many people as we can, because we really need to get some firsthand experience, talk to somebody that's seen it with their own eyes of what's really going on. So I think that'll be beneficial. And also next Thursday is our monthly Liberty Dinner. And it's going to be a little bit of a unique one because we're going to have several speakers, and they're going to be I call them the new candidates that are new to the political arena. And they're going to come up and speak and talk to us and give some of us a chance to listen to what their platform and to get to know them. And we have a few of them here today, and I'm going to actually ask them just to come up, introduce themselves, what district they're running for, and then that'll be it. And after that, we'll go ahead and get started with Priscilla. But this dinner is next Thursday at the 7th. It's our Liberty Dinner. If you haven't signed up, please do, and come and listen to these folks. It'd be really good. So I'm going to start off with Nick because he's the one I can see right there, and then Brian and Keith.
Thanks, Doug. That's called line of sight management. So, my name is Nick Christiansen, and I am running for House of Representatives, District 32, Seat A, against Stephanie Mickelson. So.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Brian, come on. And next week they have their 2 to 3 minutes, so come and listen to their 2 to 3 minutes from the next week. So that's the teaser for you to come to dinner, right?
Thank you. Brian Schultz. I'm running against David Lent here in the center of the donut hole 33.
Okay. And Keith Newberry. Smile, Keith.
I'm Keith Newberry. I'm running for Idaho State Senate District 32 against incumbent Kevin Cook.
All right, very good. And we have one other one, but I'll just be real quick. And I'm Doug Toomer, and I'm running for U.S. Senate District 35 against a gentleman named Mark Harris. Okay, one thing before we get started. Thank you. One thing before we really get started is Dennis Marson has a quick thing that he needs to talk about. Just really quick, you realize it was 7 weeks from yesterday is when vote day is. 7 weeks, that's not a long time. So it's really important, and listen to what Dennis has to say. We all have a lot of work to do, and we have to pay attention to what's going on, because this election truly is one of the most important ones of our lives. I truly believe that. Dennis.
Thank you. Every election is important, and this is a critical one. I had the privilege, real quickly, I went over to Emmett this weekend to the People's Rights rally with baby Cyrus Anderson's group. 400 people were there. It was an incredible showing. You'd have been really proud of those people over there, as I'm proud of you people here as well for being involved. But it was quite an experience to be there and hear what was talked about with Child Protective Services. And I've heard the term human trafficking going on with the state. I heard a new definition of it, and it's the state receives money. CPS receives funding from the federal government for every kid they take out of a home and place into a foster home. Now that sounds like human trafficking to me, and it probably does to you too. I know they had some of that on YouTube. You can catch some of those videos if you want to check that out. As Doug just mentioned, we've got just shy of 7 weeks until the primary election. This is a sign-up sheet for Janice McGeehan's group. We're supporting a lot of conservative candidates with that. We can use some additional hands on deck. It isn't just door-to-door. It also includes telephone calls. To be honest, telephone calling is so easy. You sit in front of your computer, it auto dials, it auto leaves messages. It's pretty cool. And it's boring because only about one person in about 10 or 15 answers the phone. So it's easy to do if you're interested in helping with that. This will be on the back table back there for people that would like to sign up, and you can scan that if you'd like to give a donation. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a little clarification too, and the thing that is happening here is Janice has offered to go ahead and help, with some of the software that she's provided with some of these other candidates and stuff, and that's why we're allowing, her to come up and, to do this, because actually what's happening is that is benefiting, and this effort is benefiting a lot of people, a lot of candidates, and they're going out as a group, if you will, with a group of, I'll call them conservative candidates, in a packet and delivering them door to door. One of the key things is just making contact at that door, and that's a huge effort. And so what this will do is help focus that effort so that we have the best impact that there is. Anyway, and with that, our guest of honor, I'll ask her to come up. I would like to welcome Priscilla Giddings, candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and I'll let her tell her story. Thanks, Priscilla.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you all for being here, for caring about this fight for freedom. Oh, I did one mistake. I went to Reed's Dairy and I got a chocolate milkshake before I came, so I'm ready for a nap. Oh, goodness. Many of you, I would say actually most of you have heard my story. I'll run through it real quickly, and then we can talk about some of the updates. I want to get into your questions because I feel like I'm kind of on the front lines of what's going on politically, and so I want to make sure you guys all know. If you have any questions, let me know, and then we can talk about how I need your help, just like all the other campaigns. And there's comfort in numbers and mass, and that's how we're going to do this across the state. And so thankfully there are patriots like you across the state, and we are connecting in a more organized fashion than we ever have had to in the history of our state. And so usually I find myself just being a node, connecting people to be able to get things done. So we are having some success, but you guys are watching it like I am, and the stakes have never been higher. It's just every day there's something new. So, a quick little background. I grew up in a Christian family. I actually lived over on 24th Street for a few years when I was a kid. Went to Taylorview, Skyline, and then we moved up to Riggins. Got to live in Israel, got to see terrorism firsthand, realized we have so many freedoms here that we need to fight for. So made a goal, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, we moved back to Idaho Falls, and then up north I went to the Air Force Academy, went on to fly A-10s, the Warthog, and then went on to fly MC-12s and nearly 1,000 combat hours in Afghanistan. Saw friends from right here in Idaho give up their life in that fight for freedom for the Afghanis to have fair elections and the rule of law and a government that would actually have a constitution that it abided by. And realized we have so many freedoms right here that we are losing. So I felt called to get involved here. Back in 2016, I ran for office, and I've been in the legislature for 6 years now. My conservative record is probably what distinguishes me the most from my opponent. So over 6 years of voting, I have a 97% conservative voting record with the American Conservative Union. But I was pretty much taken aback by how unorganized our state government was. In the military, things are just so organized. You have a mission, you have a chain of command, you talk, you're a team, and none of that is happening in the Republican Party in Idaho. The reality is there's a civil war going on inside the Republican Party in Idaho because the Democrats have called themselves Republicans for the last 15, 20 years. And the socialists have taken over the Democrat Party. And so we really have three parties here in Idaho. And how do you differentiate between them and move policy forward? So the reality is all the Democrat social programs are flying through our state at a rate that's uncontrollable. Just this year, I sit on the budget committee. Some of the big things, in the last 6 years, we've doubled our budget as a state from $6.5 billion to nearly $12 billion. And then all the Biden bucks, $21 billion in Biden bucks are now flooding into our state. We've only spent a small percentage of those, but that is also what is creating more inflation for us right here in Idaho. Because you have all this, it's double our normal state budget. It's flooding into our state, so people are spending, buying more, but you're buying more at higher prices, which means the state is taxing, has more tax rate. So that's what's created this $2 billion surplus that the media is telling you about. And so when the government tells you that you have a surplus, then you're thinking, great, we should spend more money because we have so much money. We as a state are getting nearly 50% of our budget from federal dollars. So we're literally at a welfare state point right now. And so you start spending, or we've got this $2 billion, so the government is saying, this year alone, we are growing the size of government 30% just this year. And the number of new state employees, and $2 billion, now it's up to $2.5 billion surplus. Your current governor said, hey, we've got record surplus, so we're going to give you the highest tax cut in the history of Idaho. You're going to get a check for $75 back, and I think you're going to get it back right before the May election. Because they did that last year. Remember, you got a $50 check, and on that return, there was a nice little message from the governor saying how great he is, how conservative he is, and that's why you're getting this $50 check. He's going to do the exact same thing here right before the election with $75, largest tax cut in the history of Idaho, which is $800 million of your $2.5 billion surplus. So what's he going to do with the other, $1.8 billion? Spending it, growing government 30%. So just huge. It's not sustainable. So that's one of the big issues I've been sharing with people. Because we are not as conservative as we're being led to believe. And when you have these strings attached, these federal strings attached, and a lot of this federal money, there's strings related to even 1619 project stuff, CDC guidelines, there's strings attached. You have to abide by CDC guidelines. Then the other thing we've been fighting, we fought it last year, the critical race theory, advocating it in the preschool books was one of the first things we found. We ended up killing that by 1 vote. But then this year, all this federal money came back, and now they're funding the organizations, these leftist organizations that were going to be promoting this critical race theory to our preschoolers. So they ended up funding it this year. And then the big thing that we really kind of broached the subject on here this year, and the interesting thing is that these things happen in waves across the United States. It's not like we're just isolated. Because it's like we're fighting it in the legislature and all I see is Idaho, and then all of a sudden I see a news flash that the governor of Florida just signed a bill banning the thing that we're fighting in Idaho, right? So it seems like it's just this wave of evil across the country. But the biggest thing now is this inappropriate sexualization in the content of the books for the kids. So we first found it. Obviously, parents started noticing it in the curriculum and also in the libraries. And we had, I think it was a library staffer said, well, hey, here in the law, it says you can't pass out this material unless you're a university, museum, or library. And so the libraries have these books that have very explicit content. And so we drafted up a bill saying, hey, librarians, you can't be passing this stuff out to kids. Like, it's just illegal. It's pornography. Stop. We got the bill through the House. The Senate wouldn't even give it the time of day. That's kind of a typical thing because the Senate is so liberal. So it's a typical happenstance for good legislation. And so I said, okay, so then here comes the budget for the Library Commission. And they're getting a whole bunch of federal money. And one of the things that they were asking for this year is $300,000 to put IDEA, it's called the Idaho Digital Ebook Alliance, IDEA. So they used last year's money, they already have IDEA up and running, a lot of people have access to it. But this $300,000 in this year's budget was going to provide access to all K through 12 schools so that the kids will have access to IDEA. So okay, well, I want to log in and I want to see what's in there. 20,000 titles, and based on your age, you get access to certain titles. And I found the same content that we found that was in the libraries was now going to be available to kindergartners. You know, inappropriate stuff. I'm not going to talk about all of it, but for kindergartners, no parental consent required. And then I went on to find more stuff, because you can like rent the books online, and then I asked, oh, what age group can this see? And 13-year-olds, full up, pornographic, how to do everything at 13 years old, no parental consent. So we actually, finally, they started to push that bill through the process. It got through the budget committee, so I printed all this stuff out and I took it to them, and they're like, oh. So we ended up killing that, but we went through that bill 4 different times, and they wouldn't let us leave on last Friday night until we passed the library budget. So it was midnight, and they finally passed the library budget. Because one of the other things in that budget was that it was going to have, I think, $1.5 million to create telehealth facilities in libraries. So making it like a privacy area, being able to digitally connect with a doctor in another state even. And it was interesting, and I wasn't there for part of the debate, I ran off to a campaign event, but one of the things with that is that in Idaho we have 1,400 abortions performed every year. Half of those are through abortifacients, drugs that you get prescribed, and they can send them in the mail to you, but you have to get it prescribed from a healthcare professional. And there's only 3 facilities in Idaho that physically do abortions. Most of them are done, you do a telehealth appointment, the doctor drops it in the mail to you. So creating telehealth facilities in libraries across the state actually helps provide women in rural areas more access to abortions. Very fascinating, actually, the way you can kind of just see the left working from all these different angles. So that was one of the things we fought all the way till last week, and then most of you have heard, so the governor vetoed a couple things, and we, in the legislature, we recessed. We're going back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. That's why I was gonna try to stay and door knock in the morning, but I gotta get back to Boise. And he had 2 different bills he's vetoed. This legislature's never overturned. Have we overturned? I know we've never overturned a veto of. The Senate is just too strong of an ally with the incumbent. So I'm sure it will fail to override. And then I think then it will be a vote to sine die, which means actually end the session, or just go into a long extended recess like we did last year. And the current establishment is pushing to just end it. So what ending it will do is he actually still has a whole bunch of bills on his desk that he can veto the day on Friday. So one of them is my bill, and I'll share with you a little bit about that. On my campaign trail, I ran into actually another Navy pilot up out of Lewiston, and he used to work for Boeing, and he's a data guy, so we just started digging into some election irregularities, because we've heard about it at the national level, and then we got that Heritage Foundation ranking, we're 38th in the nation, but yet everybody in Idaho is telling us Idaho is safe, right? So we started digging through who just voted in the November city races, and we found there were 21 individuals who had voted in Idaho, but also in another state. And that was just looking in Meridian, so I didn't even look across the whole state. And then we found 20 individuals who had voted in that Meridian City Council race, and they had moved 4 months prior. And we actually went and knocked on those doors and confirmed that that person did not live there, but yet they still voted. We have 30,000 names on the voter rolls that shouldn't be there. We had 1,600 who are underaged. What happened there, and the Ada County clerk who's running for Secretary of State, confessed that he messed up. They had to get out the registration drive at local high schools, and so they told all the kids to go ahead and fill out a registration card, and that they wouldn't upload their data until their birthday. And then they brought them back to the courthouse, and they went ahead and uploaded them anyway. So we had these 1,600 plus. It was primarily just Ada County. There were a few in some others, but that was primarily where those were. And then we got into finding dead people who are on the voter registration list. So my friend, he's like, well, I'll just, in the code, it flat out says, if you, the State Department of Health and Welfare has to send a list of everybody who's died to the Secretary of State's office every month. And then the Secretary of State's office divides it by counties and then sends the counties the list of the people who died. And then the law says, and you must remove those people immediately. So we asked for a list. That list that is sent from Health and Welfare to Secretary of State's office to the clerks. I'd like to see the list so I can just make sure that everybody got pulled off. And both the Health and Welfare and Secretary of State said, we can't provide you with that list because it's private information. Mind you, in the code, all the information that it says that it's supposed to give you is on the voter register, so it's not private information. What happened is the State Department of Health and Welfare added the last 4 of the individual's social security number and then said it has private information on it, so we're not going to give you that list. So we could sue them to try to say you're not following the law, or we tried to pass a law, and I really didn't think I would be able to get it through with my name on it. But we did. We got through the House. The Senate even bought off on it, and it is now sitting on the governor's desk. He didn't sign it. He has 5 days to sign it until we sine die. And then after we sine die, he can veto it. So he can, if we sine die tomorrow, that gives him the opportunity to veto it on Friday. So definitely watching him like a hawk because of all these election irregularities. We are trying to come up, I mean, we're watching the data as it comes in. On the 1st of April, absentee ballots start going out. And so we are scrubbing the lists to see have these people moved? Do they still live there? Who are asking for these absentee ballots? And one of the things we want to be able to look at is, are they dead? And so I'm praying this gets signed into law before Friday so we can get the lists and be able to cull our registration lists as well. So a lot going on there as well. Let me talk a little bit about just the campaign. I mean, I think I'm 11 months into this, and we're down to, what'd you say, 7 weeks? I don't even know what day it is right now. But it's been awesome just meeting groups of patriots across the state, and they are fired up now more than ever, but we still need help. One, just your prayer. Obviously, we're in a spiritual battle for the hearts and minds of our state and nation. Number 2, let's talk a little bit about contributions. So it's so interesting. My opponent, 22-year Speaker of the House, backed by Pfizer, Big Pharma, Select Health, all your global companies. In last month, we surpassed him in campaign contributions. So that went live on the 10th, so that was March the 10th, and I held it all the way till I think like 2 days ago. And then the media did an article, and he got like 1 donation to go above me, and the article said he was leading. I thought that was so funny. So I'm still a few $1,000s of our deadline. That's tomorrow night, so you'll see my campaign email go out again. For those of you that get that, we do need to raise just a few more $1,000s to hit our goal for this month. For those of you who aren't getting my emails, I can entice you in. We are doing an AR-15 gun giveaway on my website. So if you go and you enter your email address, you will get inputted into the drawing, and we're actually drawing for it on Sunday. And it's spray painted, made here in Idaho, a cool gun shop up in north, and it says "Let Freedom Fly" on the buttstock. So. But yeah, go to the website, giddingsforidaho.com, share your email address, and you can be put in to win for that. But so the campaign contributions are huge. Not only just trying, not really, when you're the grassroots candidate, you're going to get outspent 3 or 4 to 1. I mean, I've been told that from day one, and you just accept it, but you still have to hit some minimums. But, and so I can say starting 1 April is when we as a campaign execute. So we've got the war chest, and now it's time to execute. So I've got mail going out to 156,000 voters on the 1st. So we just did that, and then we've got a corruption slick following up to 56,000 other people who they're more focused on election integrity, and so we are fully funded to get our mailers in. Don't really have any extra for some people are saying, you should have more billboards, or more radio, or more TV. So we don't have any funds for those things, and so I try to encourage people to say, if you think I need a billboard, would you like to buy a billboard? Because in a liberty race, you really have to focus on the specific voter contact in the best way that you can. So that's where we're focusing a lot of it. But with the contributions also, it's really big, is that we have had more than 2,100 Idahoans donate to our campaign to let freedom fly, compared to his 700, which is more lobby groups. And so every $20 it shows that grassroots support, that we are getting the people behind these candidates. So, and you guys know a lot of this, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but so $20. I have copies of my book also. We're getting out of sweatshirt season, so if you want a sweatshirt, please come grab a sweatshirt so we can get the name recognition. I'll tell you, Eastern Idaho is my weakest area, and that's why I really need your help. We started door knocking 2 months ago. Kathy, do you want to just stand up so everybody can know who you are? So I met Kathy at a meet and greet I had a couple months ago, and she's helped out with campaigns before, and she knows how much work it is, and so she has been helping with our door knocking. And she's like, Priscilla, I'm out there, I'm knocking doors. Is it Robert, or where's? Yeah, Robert has knocked 250 doors just in the last few weeks, but they need more help. And so I know some of you are using Lieutenant Governor McGeehan's data. We have a similar database. I have to keep mine separate. You can use whoever's database you want, but if you have 2 hours in an evening, we have doors to knock for candidates to knock. It sounds intimidating. You get out there that first time, people actually, they're Trump voters. They want the information. They want to talk to you. So please, I've got a volunteer sign-up sheet. Anybody who can pitch in an hour here or there, you can do it on your own schedule, your own time. I'll connect you with Kathy. Hopefully as soon as the session's over and I'm done, I've got to go up north tomorrow, but I need to spend a lot more time in Eastern Idaho. So let's try to do some door knocking parties, and we've got to get these candidates elected and come together as a slate of strong candidates. So the door knocking really helps. The next one I'm going to foot stomp is poll watching. This is huge. So there's multiple ways reasons why we need to be looking for poll watchers. Some of these, the underage voters, the people who are maybe wanting to switch party affiliation. It's illegal to do it in the primary, but some poll workers don't know it, so we need poll watchers there holding them accountable. We need kind of eyes on where these drop boxes are. We need to know where they're all located, making sure somebody's kind of keeping an eye. Let's figure out who's got the security cameras on them. Let's get copies of the footage. Some of the other, what are the other things big off the top of my head? Absentees, verifying signatures. So in this last November election, all 5 mayoral city races, the conservative candidate lost in the absentee vote only. So that means we're winning in person. There's something going on with absentee, and I don't know what it is yet, but we need at least 1 to 2 that is at the main county where they're pulling in and verifying signatures. We need those poll watchers there. So, and then early voting starts May 2nd. So it's not that we really need somebody there watching every single minute, but we need somebody there who can challenge the vote. And so what we're doing in the background is we're cross-checking the National Change of Address database and the dead database, and we're getting people flagged. And so when we say, hey, we've got Bonneville County flagged, we need those people on the ground so that we can say, these people are flagged, let's challenge them or go knock on their door, see if that person really exists. So we've got to have a well-oiled machine for that. So I put out a call in my email last week. We need poll watchers. I'm trying to get people in all the different counties. Even if we have like a lot here in Bonneville County, I'm gonna need your help in some of the other counties that are nearby, because it's not that far of a trip for you. You just can't poll watch if your name is on the ballot. If your spouse's name is on the ballot, you can still poll watch. If you're a precinct person, you can go poll watch in a different precinct. So those are kind of some of the things to think of there. So, and then the biggest thing is May 17th. And they don't really start tabulating everything till after 8 p.m. So we need a few people to be there and to know what they're doing after 8 p.m. And then for all of you, be super vigilant. Camera, videotape everything. Take pictures of anything abnormal. There are some counties that are making them use a felt tip pen, and they're like, but that's weird, right? So if there's anything weird, if you show up to vote in person and they've told you that you've already voted, we've had that happen in multiple places across the state just in the last election. Like, tell somebody, let us know, because we're going to be needing to compile all of this as somewhat evidence, if you will, to make sure to try to figure out what's going on. So poll watching. I've also you can sign up on the volunteer sheet in the back, and we'll get you plugged in, and then we'll do just a little online digital training to give you an idea of what you need to be looking for in that essence. So the poll watching, the door knocking, contributions, prayer, those are the big things. Otherwise, we've got to win this. Yes. Now or never. Let me stop there and just, go to questions. Yes, sir.
Priscilla, do you have areas where you believe there have been problems in the past that need watching more vigilantly than others on the poll watching?
Ada County, Canyon County, but I think we need to just have a presence across the state so that they know that we're watching, and that usually deters shenanigans, right? When mom's in the room, the kids act a lot better, right? So we had up in Teton County, the last election in November, they tallied the results. They said, here are the winners. The next morning they walked in and said, oh, here are 2 boxes of absentee ballots we forgot to count. It overturned 2 of the races. So that's actually somewhere where it'll be difficult for us to find poll watchers, that it might be good if we have somebody in our area who we don't need the help here, if we can deploy 2 people up to that area. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to understand that this has happened. There's been some different fraudulent stuff that's happened, and possibility it's going to happen again. Why? Why isn't it stopped? If we know what happened, how come we're even here? How come we're even having another election until that was fixed?
Yeah. So because we're being run by the blue team right now. So the city races, all I could do is turn it into Phil McGrain, the most crooked clerk in the state. And he has to police himself. And then I turn the other ones into the Secretary of State's office. He even goes back to the county clerks and then just makes sure that they follow through with it. You'd be surprised, of the 21 who are interstate voters, there were 9 county clerks that didn't even prosecute it because they didn't care. So it comes also back down to the local county prosecutors. And so some of the other stuff, it's a matter of we challenge. So as an individual voter, you can challenge and pull people off the voter rolls, and people just aren't doing it. So we submitted a list, 30,000 long, challenge these, and they said, well, the code actually says you can only challenge them during an election. And so, okay, April 1st ballots go out, we'll challenge them then. So I'm doing, with the knowledge that I have, I'm trying to do as much as I can, and I'm not even an elections guru. I'm just pulling Excel data. But this shows you that, yes, there are weaknesses. And I'll tell you, someone said this to me, my opponent, I'll just say it, he's dirty. And somebody said, he can't beat you, but he can cheat you. And so that has kept me up ever since somebody said that, because I think that's true. And I'm just trying to figure out, I keep asking for divine intervention, like, show me how this is happening. And so I'm using every brain cell I have to try to figure it out. but I can't do it by myself. I mean, we need an army of eyes and ears and people digging in and not getting buffaloed. And that's, we got to give it, college effort in this election. And I'm ready to, challenge the whole election the day after, have lawyers ready, right? Because you have a very short window of time where you can actually challenge anything. But then, who you challenge to? District court. You know how corrupt they are? So you can only do the best that we can do. Yeah. I forgot to mention signs. Please, if you have as a statewide campaign, we can't really spend a lot of money on signs. But please, if you know of a good main highway or a main road through town, we've got some bigger signs and some smaller signs. Please take a sign. If you live at the end of a cul-de-sac, please don't take a sign. But if you can help get some of our signs out too, that will help Kathy, so she's not out there. She's.
No, I live in a cul-de-sac. It doesn't work.
Oh, you have your sign. But yeah, signs in the back as well. So, what other questions? There's so much to talk about. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have several questions, but one of them is, what is your position on legalizing marijuana in the state of Idaho? I've heard that's kind of a big push in some areas. What's your stance on legalizing marijuana in the state of Idaho?
I'm the daughter of a sheriff who was in law enforcement for 50 years. I'm an Air Force lieutenant colonel. I don't think we should be legalizing marijuana in our state. And you can vote with your feet if that's something that is near and dear to you. If you're a hurting veteran, I mean, we've heard a lot of stories from veterans, cancer treatment. I've heard that it really can help you, and that's great. Go to Oregon. I mean, they have veteran facilities in all those states that can help you there as well. I'm not a fan of it for Idaho. I've seen it destroy cultures. Just look at Colorado. I mean, I went to college in Colorado before it was legalized. And you go back there now, it's a different place. So that's my personal take on it. In the role of lieutenant governor, you really are not in a policy position. You only get to vote in the case of a tie in the Senate, and our Senate is so liberal, there's really hardly ever a tie. But I can talk a little bit more. In the role of lieutenant governor, you have two jobs. One is to be the presiding officer over the Senate, and then two is to act when the governor is not able to act as governor. So then you are the governor. I think that there is some opportunity there. Some of my things that I've been saying lately is one, just to provide some courageous leadership for our state. I'm tired of being jealous of Florida, right? You do have influence, and whether it's pushing conservative policy ideas, depending on who the governor is, but there's also, I think, a huge opportunity to continue to expose corruption and to hold executive agencies accountable. We have 220 state agencies, boards, commissions, and they all report to the governor, and that's it. And so they can literally be acting outside of the law if the governor allows them, and that's what we've seen happen over the last 2 years. So I personally would enjoy, on day one, showing up to an agency and saying, hey, what's working, what's not working, what can we do to make things better? And then let the people know what's going on. I put out my newsletter statewide, and I think continue to grow that network so Idahoans know what's really going on. Because that's, as soon as you have an informed electorate, then they can't, bulldoze you, or they can't hide things from you. So a lot of opportunity there too. And then just speaking truth to power. I think that we're in we're in a vacuum of that right now. And we have the media who's only sharing one side. And we need courageous leaders inside government to start speaking truth to power and letting people know what's really going on, not, this sugar-coated version of what they think is going on. So. But the role of lieutenant governor, other than that, is pretty minimal. You're the least paid of all the constitutional officers, so definitely not doing it for the paycheck, but it is a nice perk. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, could you describe the difference in your job description between the lieutenant governor and the Senate pro tem?
Yeah, it's a little bit, okay, the Senate pro tem is elected as a state senator for the district. And in our Idaho Senate, that individual is on the floor with all the other senators, but kind of runs as far as, hey, this bill is up next. The lieutenant governor is the presiding officer. So she sits up in the chair in the front, kind of like the vice president in DC. And you go through an order of business during each session on messages from the House, messages from the governor, first reading of bills, second reading of bills, third reading of bills, and then organizing debate. So you're basically just the referee for debate on the floor.
You're meaning the
lieutenant governor.
Okay.
Yep, the lieutenant governor is the referee.
Uh-huh.
And the pro tem is on the floor, casts votes, is leading the Republican senators.
So what authority does he have to put bills down and keep them?
The pro tem?
Yeah.
He picks who the chairman of each committee are and who the members of each committee are. And so that authority rests with him. And so if you as a chairman want your job, you're going to do whatever he tells you to. So there's this bill, and I don't want you to hear it. If you want to keep your job as a chairman, then you do whatever the pro tem tells you. That's kind of similar in the House, where the speaker is the one who decides that. It's a little bit different though, because in the House, the speaker is the presiding officer.
Right.
In the Senate, it's a little bit different. So as lieutenant governor, you really have zero influence on the bills, which ones get held, which committees they go to.
You just referee the session.
Correct.
Right. Words.
And then you stay healthy because you're one heartbeat away from the governorship. Good. Here first, and then we'll go back to you, ma'am.
Any chance your campaign would endorse Lieutenant Governor, our current Lieutenant Governor?
I can't, because it's not because I don't love her dearly and appreciate the job that she's done and that she's a conservative, but one, I have supporters who support a variety of the candidates that are running for governor. And so I have to remain separate and neutral. The other aspect to that is I even have a supporter who's going to vote for Brad Little and going to vote for me. Don't ask me how that works. Like it's doesn't make sense, right? But I need every vote I can get. And that's the other thing. So in my race, I am the only one in this primary, and the lieutenant governor race is the only one where there's literally only two of us. And it's like a huge line in the sand difference between us. You've got the very rhino versus super conservative. So we are going to have 200,000 Republicans vote. I need 100,000 votes plus one to win. In the governor's race, we have a whole host of candidates. And so there's going to be a split on how many votes each candidate gets, right? So you could say the person who's actually going to win could probably have less than 50,000 votes, right? And I need 100,000 votes. You have the Secretary of State's race, 3 candidates, so the winner could literally get like 40,000 votes and win. You have the Attorney General's race, 3 candidates. Literally, the winner could have, 40, 50,000 votes and win. And so I have to keep in mind for my own race, I have to remain neutral on as many of those as I can to make sure I get the most possible votes as possible. And when you dig into voting behaviors, you have the full spectrum. And we'll just say even in a conservative Republican primary, you have those that are kind of to the left. And we had, 20,000 Democrats who have registered as Republicans. So they're going to vote for my opponent. And then you've got 20,000 who are right, that they're going to vote for me no matter what. And then you have these in the middle, and it ends up being there's like a sliver on this side and a sliver on this side who end up really deciding the race. And that's kind of who you're focusing on in the last few weeks of the campaign. And so something as little as me endorsing a specific candidate that they don't like could impact my race. And so I have to remain neutral because And some people say, are you running to be the next governor? No, I'm running to make sure Scott Bedke is never the governor.
That's why I think you will get a lot more of the vote, unlike the governor's race, because there's a clear division.
You think I would get more votes if I endorsed a candidate?
If you endorse the conservative candidate,
See, I don't think so, because they're gonna get so many fewer votes than I do.
right, but then they would vote against you because they're mad at you for endorsing a conservative candidate?
No, because conservatives wouldn't vote for Scott Bedke,
Correct.
right? So it's the middle people that I have to keep happy. Yeah, I know it's a
Thanks
tough
for
one
the
to
honest
swallow,
answer.
I know.
That's the first honest politician.
I think she had one and then we'll
I was
go.
going to comment on what he said.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Door knocking.
Yeah.
At first, some governor flyers were going out with yours.
Yeah.
And I've seen them visually. I don't want that one, but I'll take her. I don't know if we offended that person at that door. And that's when it became very clear that your candidacy had to be neutral as far as the governor. Because I thought we're offending people as we go, and we can't afford to do that.
Yeah, so that's a, okay, yes ma'am.
Can I get an update? I know Idaho passed a law about transgenders, the boys who want to compete in female sports. What is the latest update on that in Idaho? And not just in sports, but it could be in anything. It could be in academic scholarships, whatever, you know. What is the latest update in Idaho on the bill that they passed and the lawsuit that's going against it?
Sure, I'll give you where my brain is on it. I don't know that's the most current. But we passed that bill 2 years ago. We were actually one of the first states in the nation to pass it. And Little signed it and it went to court. And it is still in court because we are in the 9th Circuit. And so we've been defeated essentially in court. So it's in Idaho, we've passed it, but a court order has said that we can't really enforce it. And we're fighting it in the courts. In the meantime, we're having other states across the nation, just 2 today actually signed it, Utah and Nebraska, I think it was. So, but they're in different circuit courts. So this is one of those things that I think we're gonna see all the conservative states adopt it, and it's ultimately going to go to the Supreme Court, and then we're gonna get a Supreme Court decision, and that will ultimately decide how we are able to enforce it. So it's in the courts right now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Tag team.
We'll arm wrestle. I'm not sure if Sheree is talking about the PAUSE Act that was passed. Let's see, that's what you're going to address tomorrow, right?
Right.
Whether
So
it can be overridden.
Right, so the PAUSE Act was a bill, House Bill 823. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but no, it wasn't 823, it's a different one. But basically, it was a very soft, vanilla bill saying businesses should not require vaccines to provide a service. Essentially, kind of vaccine passport, kind of saying businesses shouldn't mandate it. Didn't have any teeth, and so conservatives actually were just like, but because it didn't have any teeth, we got it through the Senate. So it was kind of there was a lot of compromising that went on, but basically it was a stop to these mandates. And that is what Little vetoed, and what we don't think we have enough votes to override the veto. So
can we hit the phones and the emails tomorrow?
You can.
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah. Tonight would be the night, and in the morning, because we'll be overriding, we go into the session. I think the Senate's going to start at 10, and caucus, and then 11, so the vote will probably happen before lunch. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathy?
Yeah, I understand that you guys were working on a really good bill for the ESG, and you're working like mimicking what West Virginia and like that is doing. And I understand that was another watered down bill.
Right, so ESG, economic social governance score, the new social credit score, basically, you know, your banking habits, they create a score for you, and then you have whether or not you can get good credit, but then they're trying to apply that to more aspects of your life, kind of linked to what they did with the Canadian truckers, and they took away their money out of their bank accounts. And we had Glenn Beck, actually, several of us Christian legislators went down to the Wall Builders conference with David Barton and Glenn Beck, and we kind of got a minute with Glenn Beck and said, come to Idaho, help us. And he has property in Idaho, and so he agreed to it, and he showed up at the Capitol last month and said, here's my plea. You have got to stop ESG, because this literally, we could great reset in the next 6 to 12 months. And we don't have time for you to go out of session. And so he met with leadership, he met with my opponent, and they drafted up a bill. They killed it in the business committee, said it was too complicated, so then they just came up with a resolution. I don't even know if the resolution, I think it passed, basically saying we don't agree with it, but it means nothing. So then we drafted up another ESG bill that was stronger and better, and they wouldn't let it go through the process. So we're already pretty much too far gone, this legislature. All the more reason why May 17th is so important, because of the 105 legislators, there are about 31 of us that are actually conservative. In the House, the vote count is usually, for all of this pro-spending, grow government, meta handouts, or tax breaks to build their data center in CUNA, all of those vote counts are 42 to 28. So that's 14, so that's 7 people. Literally, we need 7 more conservatives in the House so that we have a majority to be able to stop the bad stuff. And we're just not there. And so it's like a freight train out of control. And they've just taken advantage of it this year. All your rights violated, nothing stopped it. So I'm still in a state of emergency. That will end soon, but Oregon is going to go out of their state of emergency before Idaho does. I mean, that's a sad. Well, pretty kind of atypical, but hopefully you got to hear from me and sign up, get my newsletter. I'm about to send out my last newsletter for the session, get my emails, keep in touch. Yeah, I guess a couple more questions. I don't know how we're doing on time, but 3 more questions now. We'll go back to front. Yes, ma'am. You're good.
Okay, so Governor DeSantis in Florida, they passed that bill about parents' rights and education bill. And he mentioned in one of his talks about a case here in Idaho where things were happening in school that the parents didn't know about. I don't know if you heard his speech or what, I don't know what case he's talking about, but what do we have here in Idaho that protects parents' rights in that same area and curriculum that they're passing, that they passed in Florida? You know how our state is here?
Yeah, it's complicated. There's a whole section of code that's parental rights, parental rights, parental rights. There's even a section that says the parents have the ability to go and inspect all of the curriculum. So I asked the Boise School District for the curriculum, and they said, no, we're not going to show it to you because it's a trade secret. Okay? So, and that was for the AVID curriculum, and inside AVID they have special things where they're pushing equity and critical race theory and social justice indoctrination. So there's that. Then you have the critical race theory stuff in and of itself. And they say, well, we don't have it here, we outlawed it. Well, we have 21 teachers in the state that pledged to teach it even though it's outlawed. If we had a Governor DeSantis, that wouldn't happen, right? They'd be out of a job. So what we have is that, back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning, our executive branch is not enforcing the law. And that's the breakdown. Like, the law is strong. Parents have these rights, but the executive branch is giving the State Board of Education and these school boards. I mean, even, I had a teacher at Boise School District, she called me and she said, hey, I'm being told that I have to call this little 13-year-old girl Daniel, and I won't do it. And they're telling me I'm gonna lose my job if I don't call him Daniel. So every teacher in the school is calling her Daniel, and the parents do not agree. They do not approve of them doing this, and they're doing it anyway. So I see the superintendent of instruction at a Lincoln Day, and I say, hey, this is happening, you need to stop it. She goes, oh, that's out of my lane, you need to just call the local superintendent. No, timeout, right? I mean, the state superintendent of instruction has the authority to say, no, you are not going to do that because the law says this and this regarding parental rights and a host of other situations. But because she's not enforcing it, it's like when you don't have a teacher on the school ground or the playground, what's going to happen? And that's where we're at. Back to the importance of a new, strong, courageous person, leader in the executive branch that is like DeSantis, because you can put a stop to this with the law as it is. It's just we have out of control, no enforcement of the law. So yes, there's strong parental rights now. You've got that hole in the law about libraries passing out bad information or inappropriate information. I think a strong administration, a strong school board could easily put that to an end, because you can show them these other parts of the law where it says that's illegal, even though you're trying to create a loophole. So it's kind of sad because in Idaho, everything, it's all reactionary. So they're just reacting instead of being proactive with this stuff. But we're outnumbered, so, okay, yeah.
Thanks, Priscilla. When I've been knocking doors, people, I tell them that the law hasn't been enforced about the 30-day emergency declaration, which could be renewed for another 30 days. Then I tell them we're still under that emergency declaration, and they don't seem to care. So I wonder if you could just tell me some things I can tell that the governor might do, since technically we're still under that, or could do. Could he call a lockdown again? Could he?
Yes, and that's actually, I was listening to something today and I was like, that's spot on. So as of yesterday, there's areas of China now that are under higher lockdown than they ever were under COVID. And so I think it's so fascinating. I feel like that they're releasing this emergency, and there's this mantra of it's over right before the primary. And then they still have the authority to lock it down even more than they did before. And now you're 4 years out from the next election. And so now, hence why the Attorney General's race is so important, because that's a lot of the reason why the governor has been allowed to do that, because we just don't have a lawyer who's holding him accountable. So using the fact that a stronger lockdown could happen and be around the corner. But you can also share, we still have children masked in our state. And we have the governor of Virginia who signed an executive order getting rid of all masks for children. We still have children in Idaho who are masked, right? So with better leadership, and get with me, I can probably give you a bunch of other examples. The advertising, spending billions of dollars to advertise the shot for children. Our governor is approving that. And we just had, a few weeks ago, those two little boys from the same family, both dropped dead 3 and 4 days after taking the shot. And I don't know that that's in Idaho. I don't know the location of that, but it made national news. And yet we're spending billions of dollars to force this shot on kids that are younger and younger. And who's doing that is our governor, who's advertising and using that money for that. And that's not the role of government. So those are several things that I think could be used.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr.
Is there any way to fight against this fact that the Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader can absolutely control whether a bill gets even looked at?
Yeah, so there's a breakdown right now, and basically the Speaker and the Pro Tem decide which bills go through the process, and he's saying, is there any way to get rid of that? Elections. And the fact that Bedke's running for Lieutenant Governor, he will never be the Speaker of the House again. So that's kind of a victory in and of itself. And honestly, he's kind of the one that started that. I've spoken with legislators who served before he was in leadership, and that didn't happen. So that's kind of been a new thing under his reign. And I think it's a strong point. But absolute power corrupts. And yeah, so elections. And then if we get more conservatives elected, then we can elect a speaker who is going to kind of push the power back down towards the committee chairs and the legislators. So it's definitely a leadership decision.
That's a real pet peeve for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes ma'am.
For me, it's overwhelming to comprehend the level of criminality that we're sitting in. And to even imagine or to consider that it has been going on my entire lifetime. And now that we can see what we can see blatantly, and yet we can still consider that elections will make a difference. I wonder from your heart and your soul, how do you handle going into a pit of snakes and feeling like you could make some kind of difference, even to consider the question about drugs, and let's call this drug marijuana. And I am not into any of that, but I'm so not into any of that, I will not accept what Big Pharma is doing either. And I see the harm and the deaths, and the harm and the deaths, like a mantra of what is devastating humanity and has been allowed to devastate humanity for so many years. And then we want to play around with, well, this drug we should have let. But here, this whole kingdom is built on, and the money of that is going to bribe the politicians in the arena if you want to go, and be a further part of. And I think, how does consciousness continue to believe in something that says, what? That there could be a solution mixed in with the evil that we're witnessing as our leadership? And without saying, the only answer would be to overturn the whole thing. And so help me so that I don't stay too confused and wound up.
All that you just said, I feel every night before I go to bed. But I'm a God-fearing woman, and I know God wins in the end. And nowhere in his book did he tell us that life on earth was going to be, sugar plums and fairy tales, right? It's supposed to be hard, and it's going to get worse. And in fact, I'm counting on it to get worse. So my job as a Christian is to occupy until he returns, to try to ward off evil, right? Because we can't turn and just look the other way. And so I share with people across the state. I say, vote, poll watch, vote in person, help with poll watching, help donate. I mean, your lives, your fortune, your sacred honor, like we're at that point again. But I also tell people to plant a garden and keep buying ammo, because I've been in other countries where it gets a lot worse. And so we've got to be ready for anything. And I'm a fighter, and they hate me, and so I kind of like that. It's kind of fun. You're not ready, Doug, or?
I just want to add a little bit. So I'm running, right? And this isn't something I'm going to cry. I hate what we see. I hate it. And it's got to stop. Make it stop, or else sit down and do nothing.
That's right.
So we are gathering. This is a prime example of somebody that has inspired people like me, like Keith, like Brian, to stand up and try to do something. And the more people that we inspire by our voice, by standing up and standing together, the more power we have to take back our state and fix the problems that are in it. We can't give up, so we're going to fight.